Welcome back to the channel. Guys, today I have something a little bit different. I have a question that I've been asked a couple times. It's a question I've even been asking myself. And that is the C7 Corvette a supercar? Alright, so as anyone who is familiar with the C7 Corvette, specifically the Z06 and even the ZR1, you'll know that GM never released official times of their cars around the Nurburgring track. Now, about a year ago or so, an unofficial time came out for the Z06 of a driver who went to the Nurburgring with their personal Z06 and managed to get a 7-minute 13-second time around the track. Still a very, very, very respectable time, but I actually came across some numbers on the Corvette forum that are actual official numbers from GM that were never released. And the 7-minute 13-second time, that's good, but the actual Z06 time is faster than that. So before I actually get into the times that I found on the Corvette forum, I wanted to get into a conversation of whether or not you believe the C7 Corvette, the Stingray, the Z06, the Grand Sport, or the ZR1, if those are considered supercars. Honestly, up until I saw these numbers and started doing a little digging with the information, I would have been more so inclined to tell you, no, I don't believe that this is a supercar. But after I saw these numbers and I started to see all the other cars that were included in these numbers, I can now safely tell you, yes, I do believe that the 7th generation Corvette, at least from the Grand Sport up to the ZR1, I do believe those are considered supercars. And I'll tell you why. So let's get into the numbers here. Number one, we're going to start with the Stingray. The Stingray Z51 made it around that track, the Nurburgring, in 7 minutes and 33 seconds. Very respectable time. I didn't look a lot into those numbers because that is still on the higher end, so I didn't really look a lot into it as far as what cars that would beat, etc. Now, the Grand Sport, 7 minutes and 27 seconds. Very good time. The Z06, actual time from GM, 7 minutes, 10 seconds. The ZR1, 6 minutes, 57 seconds. Now, let's really break this down and see exactly what these numbers mean. Right off the bat, we're going to start with the ZR1. 6 minutes, 57 seconds is astounding. That is incredibly fast to make it around this track. Now, that 6 minutes, 57 seconds literally puts this car in the top 5 of cars around that track. Now, that is incredibly impressive, especially when you hear the list of the cars that it is either just as fast or faster around that track. Now, 6 minutes, 57 seconds. The GT3 RS, which is a $200,000 car, makes it around the track in 6 minutes, 56 seconds and some change. So, technically, the ZR1 isn't quite as fast as the GT3 RS, but it also doesn't cost as much. Now, the second one, this is the one that really, really, really impresses me. That is the Porsche 918 Spyder. That makes it around that track in 6 minutes, 57 seconds, the exact same amount of time the ZR1 makes it around. The biggest difference here, that 918 Spyder, the cheapest I can find that car online is literally $1 million. So, I mean, honestly, it ranges from $1 million up to 1.4, 1.8. This car is expensive. And the ZR1 will do the track time in the exact same amount of time. Another impressive one, the ZR1 beats the Lamborghini Aventador around the track. That car has a track time of 6 minutes, 59 seconds. That is a $400,000 car that the $150,000 ZR1 beats by 2 seconds around that track. This is very impressive stuff, guys. I don't know. Whenever I saw this, it really, really puts it into perspective as to what we're talking about when we're talking about quote-unquote supercars. Okay, so the second one's going to be the Z06. The Z06 makes it around that ring in 7 minutes and 10 seconds. The car that matches that time is the Mercedes AMG GT-R. It goes around at 7 minutes, 10 seconds as well. That car starts out at $157,000. So we're talking about almost $60,000, $70,000 price difference as a starting point, and that car makes it around the track in the same amount of time. Now the second one, this one's an impressive one, is the Lexus LFA. It's a nice car. Very respectable time as well, 7 minutes and 14 seconds. That's 4 seconds slower around the track. That car costs $400,000, 400 plus, because honestly, those are pretty rare cars, so it's hard to even find them. The Porsche 911 Turbo makes it around 7 minutes, 17 seconds. That's a $161,000 car. Porsche 911 GT2 RS, 7 minutes, 18 seconds. That's almost $300,000 car. So, like I said with the ZR1, suddenly all this stuff is coming into perspective for me, and it's starting to look a lot like the idea of a super, quote-unquote, supercar has more so to do with price than it does with performance. Now, lastly, I looked up the Grand Sport, the times for that. That made it around the track, 7 minutes, 27 seconds. It's the slowest of the three, but still, it's ahead of a lot of supercars. The Porsche Carrera GT makes it around the track in 7 minutes, 28 seconds. That's a $400,000 car. The McLaren 12C makes it around that track in 7 minutes, 28 seconds. That's a $250,000 car. The Lamborghini Huracan makes it around that track, 7 minutes, 28 seconds. That's a $200,000 car. Now, the Grand Sport is the slowest of the three. The Grand Sport's also the cheapest of the three. So when you really start to add up these numbers, you can get a Grand Sport well option nowadays for around mid-high 60s. And that's beating $400,000 cars around that track. The more I look at these numbers, the more I start to realize two things. Number one, the C7 Corvette is, in fact, a supercar. Number two, what it actually means to be a supercar is not necessarily what most people think. In my opinion, to be a supercar, it has more so to do with performance than it does anything else. So if you're beating these cars around the track, if a Grand Sport can beat a Lamborghini around the track, and the Lamborghini is considered a supercar, then that Grand Sport is considered a supercar as well. The Z06, same thing, supercar. The ZR1, definitely a supercar. Because these cars are literally beating cars around the track that are always have been and will always be known as supercars. So as I said before, the only difference I see between the Corvette and a Lamborghini or something considered a quote-unquote supercar is price. And if you ask me, that's a stupid thing to really consider when you're talking about what is a supercar and what's not. In my opinion, supercar is performance. So if we're talking about a car, like I said, that can beat a Lamborghini around the track, that's a supercar. Now, Lamborghinis, for the most part, Porsches, they have to fall into a category of their own for a different reason. And it's not because they're a supercar. I would say it's because maybe they're exotic. The idea of an exotic car has more so to do with limited production numbers than a supercar. So when I think supercar, and I've always thought this, when I think of a supercar, I think of something that is much faster, more so performance-oriented than your everyday, Escort or Cruise or something along those lines. Those cars will get you back and forth from point A to point B, but they're not going to do it the same way a quote-unquote supercar would. That's going to be a much more fun drive. It's going to be more performance-oriented. It's going to have suspension and all this other things that really make the car a different animal to drive. Now, obviously, there's the naysayers out there that say, the whole track time thing doesn't really mean a lot. And honestly, I don't necessarily disagree. It doesn't have a lot of meaning. But what it really does for me is it puts it in perspective, the performance of these cars compared to other supercars. So regardless if you think this is an important stat or not, this really is a good thing to look at to see where that car stacks up, how it stacks up against other performance supercars. Now that's going to be it for today, guys. Let me know what you think down below. Do you disagree? Do you agree? The C7 is a supercar based on these numbers alone. If you liked the video, give me a big thumbs up. If you haven't, go ahead and subscribe, and I'll catch you guys in the next upload.